This is a WKYT podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Victor and Miranda.
Yay! Thanks for pulling me out of the newsroom.
Filling in for Andrea today. Yeah, I was looking around. I was like, who's a good talker? Boom. Miranda Combs was available.
Oh, there's no good talkers in here. So there's Miranda.
No, I was excited to have you sit in today, especially, so we were talking to D.H. Harrison, I just know him as Daniel, about some craft brewing, and I thought it was especially interesting what you told me you only drink Miller Lite.
Yeah. You know the best part of this interview coming up is what he says about water.
Yeah.
That made me feel a lot better.
Yeah?
That
It's a good
mostly
water.
beer is
Beer's
mostly
mostly
water.
You just makes you feel better because you're like, I'm getting my hydration.
Why can I pee in the morning, though?
You know, I normally, if I'm out imbibing, I'll have a water maybe every other drink.
Yeah, that's what my husband does, too.
Makes you feel great the next day.
Yeah, but
You just don't
I
think
drink
about that.
slower, I think, so I might trying to keep up with him because I can't let him beat me.
Yeah, that's fair.
We might have a problem.
All right, well, everybody get ready. This is our conversation with DH from Country Boy Brewing. All right, everybody, the interview has started. Miranda, you look excited.
I'm very excited. Thanks for having me. I hope you tell Andrea that I'm doing this before it airs.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, she'll probably just hear it and figure it out at the same time.
That sounds good to me.
So we are here today with, well, everybody else knows him as DH. I started off knowing him as Daniel, which was kind of odd for me to figure out that to everybody else, he's just DH.
Right.
Daniel Harrison, one of the founders of Country Boy Brewing.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Miranda started off. Miranda, you had some questions right away.
Well,
yeah.
Before we get into the questions, let me just say when I get called Daniel, either that's someone who knows me from a previous life, church, or family, and in your case, it just happens to be family. So that's
Or
all we
if
got.
you just Googled you.
You get much more results.
You
if
get more
Google
DH.
if you
Yeah.
do.
So full disclosure, DH is his cousin is my wife.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You've said it 3 different ways.
I
this
keep saying
morning.
it different ways. Yeah, I keep saying like this morning. I said he was the wife to my cousin. Then I was like, wait, that's not correct. There's a lot of things wrong there. But yeah, so that's the thing. My wife Mandy, she'd always just be like, yeah, we're going over Daniel, blah blah blah. And so then I always knew him as Daniel, and then everybody started saying DH. I'm like, who's this DH guy?
Well, then I guess a fun fact as well. I married my cousin.
There you go.
It sounds worse, but I did.
He officiated our wedding. He was the officiant.
Oh,
so yes.
you married your... Okay.
Yeah.
I always get a lot of good reactions when I say, "Hey, I'm from Kentucky.
I was
What's a
like,
fun
where
fact
are we
about
going
you?"
to go with this
I
one?
married my cousin.
We got much more to talk about than beer, apparently.
I was honored to be a part of it. Mandy's one of my favorites, and she just happened to find Victor, who falls in extremely well with our family. We have Thanksgivings and Christmases and all that kind of stuff. Is a lot of fun now.
You look a little like Mandy.
Huh?
We have strong eyebrows on the
Yeah.
Harrison side.
The
Strong
eyes,
eyebrows.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Miranda's learning all kinds of
Except the
interesting stuff. Yeah, thankfully, her beard is not quite as strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, Miranda, you were asking about the brewery and just kind of how it got started.
Yeah, when did it start? How did it start?
So our story of how we got started. How long is this podcast going to be? Because our story of how we got started is really unique in the craft beer world.
We go as long as we want.
I got into craft beer. I've always been interested in like food and travel and exotic things, exotic beers. And so I found myself after grad school accepting a position to go teach English in Japan in Georgetown's sister city.
This will be a long story.
Tahara. And we are the embodiment of contradiction at the brewery, we like to say, because if you were to look at us and we say, hey, our roots are in Japanese brewing, and that's where we got into craft beer, or at least my experience was, people would be like, yeah, absolutely not. These guys look like a
Couple of good old boys.
Yeah, bearded rednecks. There's no way that's possible. Nope.
You're fine. I just pointed it up so we
And so in Japan, I lived there in Tahara, Georgetown, sister city relationship obviously developed because of the Toyota factory that's in Georgetown, the Toyota factory that's in Tahara. Started in 1989, I believe. The 30th anniversary will be coming up very, very soon to celebrate that. But when you're in Japan, it's a great country. Love it. But it's very hard to assimilate into the culture because you always stand out, at least as a guy from northern Scott County, Kentucky, in Tahara, Japan. And so a lot of people there. I have a good friend, Vanessa, who's back in Lexington now. She got into like flower arranging, Japanese culture. I had another friend that was into Japanese history. If you're going to stay there in Japan for a long time, you got to really like find a niche to get into, to find a group of friends, and that's what makes it fun. And so I got into beer because that's what I like. And so Japanese beers and Japanese breweries. And actually, full disclosure, one of my partners now at the brewery just happened to take the same position from Georgetown College and in the sister city and was there with me. So Nathan Coppage and I both, two of the four of us that started Country Boy, were in Tahara together. And we started a blog about craft beer in Japan. I'm a reformed craft beer blogger, full disclosure. That's how we started.
So what are some of the biggest differences with beer in Japan as far as
craft? I know more about Japanese craft brewing than probably anybody in Kentucky, which that and the dollar will get you a cup of coffee in the morning. It's useless information. But craft brewing in Japan was just legalized in 1996. And so the movement is still very, very new there. Similar to beer here, as far as there are a couple big players, Asahi, Kirin, Sapporo, Suntory, but in Japan they actually don't use adjuncts in their mainstream lagers like we do here. Like they don't use rice, which is kind of ironic that the Japanese big brewers wouldn't use it, and then we use it here to kind of thin the beers out. They're all malt. They're great beers, outstanding products, but they kind of had bullied the market a little bit, and the craft beer guys were way behind the scene that was here in America. And so they were really growing when we were there in the mid-2000s. And we started a blog, one of the first blogs in English about Japanese craft beer that basically was like, hey, if you're into this kind of stuff and you want to find where it's at, here's a blog post about going to this brewery.
And this was back when?
2006, 2007.
Okay.
So right as American brewing is really exploding. Long story short, and it's not going to be that short, a guy named Brian Baird from Baird Brewing in Shizuoka, Japan. He's from Oxford, Ohio, expat, lived in Japan for 35 years now. We went to his brewery. I absolutely fell in love with him, with his beer, with his brewery, with his ethos and his passion for craft beer. And so we started kind of just going back to his brewery very, very often. It's at the foot of Mount Fuji. You're sitting in the tap room. You look out over Saruga Bay. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just one of my favorite places to be in the world, and the beer's phenomenal. The water, full disclosure, it's just a fun fact at Fuji, like the water is so pure, so that's why like a lot of breweries and sake breweries and whiskey distilleries are around Fuji because the water's amazing. Anyway, but
which I guess having an ingredient that pure helps a lot with the brewing.
Absolutely. I mean, beer's mostly water, so we got to start with a good water source. But really got into beer with him, and one day Nate and I were sitting at the bar, and he was like, when you guys go back to Kentucky, what are you going to do? And we're like, well, we want to start a brewery, just like everybody that's ever, homebrewed or got, because we were homebrewing a little bit in Japan. Whoever's like, really got into craft beer, like, well, I could do this. And so in a very, Eastern Japanese way, Brian like charged us like, well, when you go back to Lexington, DH, you will talk about the beer and you will run the brewery, and Nate, you will brew the beer, like very Japanese way of saying, go ye therefore and do this, my
very Japanese.
My Padawans or whatever. And we came back in 2000, and Nate came back in 2009. I came back in 2010. I had met my wife. My wife, Michi, is from really close to where I lived in Japan. Toyohashi is where she's from. So we came back in 2010, and I got a job working for Dan and Andrea Galvin and Stephanie and Lee Jones at a place in Georgetown called Galvin's. It's like the anchor of downtown. It's an awesome craft beer bar.
I ate there the other night.
And, all the food's made from scratch. Shout out to Galvin's. If you've never been there and you're in Georgetown, you're missing out if you haven't. It's amazing. I started working there, just kind of learned the front of the house of business. Like we knew we wanted to make beer, but I knew nothing about running a bar, running a business, making payroll, any of that kind of stuff. And then Nate actually got a job working for Kentucky Ale on the production side of making beer. Because we were homebrewing, we could make a really good homebrew beer, but there's a big difference in being able to homebrew and to be able to commercial brew.
You need consistency.
Right. My grandmother is an excellent cook, but she can't run a restaurant at rush hour. Right. That's the difference. And so through a roundabout way, I had met this guy that kept coming in Galvin's. He was a member of the Homebrew Club. He actually just won the Alltech Pro-Am Brew-Off. Super guy. I was like, man, Nate, I've got this dude that he's a little older than us. He's got a little more business experience. If we got with him, I think we could start a brewery up. And Nate's like, well, hold your horses, man. Like, we'll meet with this cat. But before that, I want you to meet this guy that I met from the homebrew club. He's a really good brewer, a little older than us. He may be a fit. And so I was like, sweet, we'll meet with your guy first at my apartment in Georgetown. So we're in my apartment waiting on this guy to come because I was like, hey, my guy's name's Jeff. And Nate's like, hey, my guy's name's Jeff too. That's kind of weird. And so all of a sudden Jeff walks in, my guy, and we're supposed to meet with Nate's guy. I'm like, hold up, dude, we've screwed up. Like, we're meeting with my guy first. And Nate's like, no, this is my guy. And lo and behold, that's the way things work. We had both met the same person, right? Mm-hmm. And then just as the way things work, too, Nate's brother, Evan, who's the only one of us that has any science background, had just graduated a grad program at Murray State and was like, hey, I like beer and I like making it and I actually know what I'm doing with science-wise, so can I join forces with y'all? So the four of us in 2012, in spite of the fact that we didn't know anything about anything, I like to say we didn't even know what to be scared of it. We opened up at 436 Chair Avenue, the original Country Boy location here in Lexington. On February 17th, 2012, we poured our first pint and sold our first pint of beer.
So how big are you now?
In 2016, well, we've been blessed. Lexington's seen just a craft beer renaissance.
Multiple breweries opening.
We opened, and we'd been talking to our friends at West 6 the entire time we were getting open because we're kind of like, hey, what are you all planning on doing? And they're like, well, if we're thinking about doing this, what are you all thinking about doing? And we're still extremely good friends to this day. But they opened up, I think, like 2 months after we did in 2012. Blue Stallion was about a year after that. Then our friends at Ethereal, like Floan and Bishop, had been coming in the bar, hanging out at the brewery, and then they were like, we want to start a brewery too, and we're like, get after it. And then they opened I think a year after that, and then you've got Mirror Twin, Rockhouse, Pivot. I don't want to leave anybody out. I'll make somebody mad.
No, you're fine. I think one of the amazing things that I've seen is you have all of these new businesses opening up, doing very similar things, and it seems like they are all supporting each other because it would be very possible to think that they would all be trying to be like, no, stay with us, stay with them, whereas everybody seems to be like, oh, if you like this, you should try this, you should try this.
All we're doing is just educating people out there that there is awesome beer being made in Kentucky and being made in Lexington. And if we can add to the conversation and not necessarily steal them away from the big guys, but literally, if you're a beer drinker, hey, you should try some stuff made here in Lexington. It's really good. And once you like it, then it's like, well, what else is out there? Once we turn you away from McDonald's hamburgers to like a craft-made excellent burger like we have many spots here in town, you just don't eat that one place the rest of your life. You seek that out in multiple locations.
You start wanting to explore the different places, which is what I found. I think I was never I wouldn't consider myself a craft brew expert, but I definitely started drinking more different varieties of beers. And, you start off with kind of the basics at a place, and they're like, well, here, try this. And then you hear about new beers at other places. And so
the other thing too is every brewery kind of has their own fingerprint on what they're doing. So even though we're going at making great craft beer, everybody does it a little bit differently. So if you're a country boy, like our beers have a certain flavor profile that kind of permeate across our lineup. If you go to like Weisberg, the new cidery that's in the distillery district, the way that Tim's making cider down there is completely different than the way we make cider, and there's room for that, right? And that's what's kind of fun. Is you may have your favorite brewery, but it's also fun to go and see how everybody else is doing the same thing in a different way.
So then Miranda asked, "How big are you all? I mean, what's it been like growing?"
Well, in 2000, we saw how things were going, and we knew we wanted to keep growing, but our space constraints at Lexington wouldn't allow us to get any bigger. We got to 10,000 barrels. We did 500 barrels the first year we were open in 2012. We got to 10,000, I think, in 2015. And we couldn't grow anywhere beyond that because of just space. There's no more place to put tanks or anything like that. And so we looked around for an existing building, couldn't find anything, and just kept coming back to Georgetown and Scott County as a place we could expand to. I'm from Scott County. I'm from Sadieville area, born and raised. My dad ran a business in downtown Georgetown for a long time. My mom worked at one of the old school, Scott County Pharmacy, one of like the old pharmacies like you remember from your childhood. Worked there for a long time downtown, so I knew a lot of people in town. I always had loved Georgetown. I went to Scott County High School, Georgetown College. I've always been a Georgetown, Scott County guy, and it just kept coming back to that. So the business park has some great land out there, so we scooped up 6 acres and broke ground on March 30th of 2016. And then thanks to some good weather, we were under roof and open February 17th of 2017. So we missed being open February 10th when we opened in Lexington 5 years by 1 week. But we didn't have bathrooms, and that's kind of a
very important, especially with
part
beer.
With the brewery. Yeah, we wanted to have those operational, so we opened on the 17th. And it's just been crazy ever since. Last year we did about 15,000 barrels of production. This year we have more tanks on order. At the moment, we are in the middle of a 19,000 square foot expansion on that facility. We bought the next 4 acres next to the 6 that we originally bought. And we'll have the capacity to do about 35,000 barrels if things keep going that way. So,
Full disclosure over here, I typically, I only drink Miller Lite. Not only Miller Lite, but Miller Lite in a can with a koozie.
Okay.
That's it. I will literally walk out of a restaurant if they don't have... I don't even want draft because it gives me a headache. That's it.
a lot of people say that.
So I almost feel like with the boom of this craft beer that I'm disgusting in bars now because I only will drink Miller Lite. I feel like I'm looked down on. I'm looked down on.
100%. No, and a lot of people, there are a lot of, and I think people in this community would be okay with me calling them beer nerds or beer snobs. It's kind of like how they refer to themselves. And we all have a friend like that that's like, oh, I wouldn't drink that.
Look at him, yes.
Triple IPA or die for me, But I think they're okay with us saying this. That's okay if you're like that and you like what you like. I'll probably speak for most people that work for us that I'm an equal opportunity drinker. Like if you got a beer, I'll try it, especially if you're giving it to me. I'm not going to turn it down. If we're at the golf course.
I should also say we're big NASCAR fans, so that might lead you.
If you're at the golf course and you threw a Busch Light at me and said, "Hey, would you drink this? Is this beneath you?" Like I'm popping the top, man.
We're in.
Right. So, but what I would say to you is, you like what you like. Right, so if you like Miller Lite, and a lot of people say draft gives them headaches. There's multiple reasons for why it's there.
That is a concern with craft beer. Is craft beer typically a worse hangover than your more old typical
It's
beers?
a loaded question. So with craft beer, the easy way to avoid a hangover is just don't drink so much, as my mom says. But
if that's not an option, then...
there are certain beers that have higher alcohols more in craft beer. Let me say that correctly. Craft beer usually has a higher ABV percentage than some of your mass marketed lagers. But that being said, there's a lot of adjuncts that can be in craft beer. Like if you go out and tie one on with like a double Imperial Russian Stout with vanilla and cocoa and a bunch of sugar in it, it's probably going to make you feel... It's just same way if you chug 4 bottles of Boone's Farm. There's a lot of sugar in that kind of stuff, and those kind of things get in your system are good for you, and that's kind of what makes you feel bad. But for you saying you like Miller Lite, you like what you like, and no one can tell you what it's your palate. The way you see blue, maybe the way... I shouldn't say see blue, that's trademark. The way you see colors may be different than I see colors, right? The way you taste a hamburger may be different than the way I taste it. The way you taste Miller Lite, it may taste... Right, I can't tell you how to taste it because I'm not inside your head. What I would say, though, is... Where are you from, originally?
Pretty much here.
Are you from Kentucky? All right. This is my message to the Kentucky drinker. Like, we're very parochial. We like what we like, and sometimes we like what we like because we want to like it, right? So I drink... Bud Heavy, Budweiser, because I'm a Budweiser guy.
Okay.
When I was coming up in the beer world, all my friends drank Bud Heavy. The guys that were older than me, I idolized, they drank Bud, right? So, I'm a Bud Heavy guy. So, if you were to ask me, are you a Bud Light? Or if you'd ask me, am I a MGD guy? No, I'm a Bud Heavy guy. So, for you, are you a Bud Light person? You'd be like, no, I'm a Miller Lite person, right? So, there's a little bit probably you have a brand loyalty and affinity for that Miller Lite can.
And that's from Kentucky. Kentuckians are like that.
Not saying that we own that exclusively, but we like what we like, right? I think maybe Texans like Texas a little more than we like Kentucky, but we're in the conversation. So for you, there's that underlying thing. But there's a whole lot of craft breweries out there now making excellent, very clean, lighter lagers. So, we have a Survive, is what we call it. It's a Pilsner that we're actually kind of retooling to make it a little bit lighter to hit that low-calorie, active lifestyle, low ABV. But, our Helles or, there's some great, Ethereal's got a wheat beer that's awesome. West 6 has a Pennyroyal Pale. It's probably got a little too much hops for what you're going to like. But there's a lot of good breweries out there that are making those styles that I think if you tried, you'd be like,
the
whoa.
Kolsch and the...
Right.
Yeah.
For a long time in the craft beer world, too, if you were to walk in the front door, they would say, oh, here's an IPA.
Yeah.
Well, you're a Miller Lite person, so if I give you an IPA, you're going to be like, yuck.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. I think that's the problem. I've seen instances of people say, well, look, I don't drink a lot of beer. I don't have, and people go, well, here's one of the heaviest things we have, and it's like,
right.
Well, you're just knocking their socks off, and yeah,
Unless
suddenly
you can get through the first one, and then you're okay.
Well, that too, but yeah, suddenly you're going, oh, well, if this is what craft beer is, I'm not interested, because that's the kind of thing you have to build up to. I mean, that's like saying, hey, we need you to go run this marathon. Well, I don't even jog. What are you talking about?
Someone that's never had cheese before. Like, in
Don't
Japan,
shut 'em
cheese is
up.
not a big thing, right? So if you're like, oh, I'm not really a cheese person, and if you were to take it to a Japanese person, be like, well, cool, here's like a Stilton blue cheese that's
Yeah.
funky. They're gonna be like, oh my gosh,
Cheese is nasty.
this is terrible. Who could eat this type of stinky stuff? But like a Stilton blue cheese is 100% different than the fresh mozzarella, but they're still cheese, right? Same way with beer. I've said this for years now, and maybe I just need to put my name on it and say that I came up with it. I don't know if I did or not. That may be a lie. But beer is like sandwiches, right? So like when people say, we'll have people come in and be like, oh, do you have anything else other than beer? I don't like beer. What my response to that is, I don't believe you. What you're telling me is like you did a keg stand in college and that wasn't a good experience for you, right? Like you you have a bad association with the way beer tastes or the experiences you had with it, or whatever, or maybe genuinely you just don't like the way American light lagers taste. If I told you I didn't like sandwiches, you would be like, well, what kind of sandwiches don't you like? Right? Well, I don't like sandwiches. Well, that's dumb because
no, you have to like.
so many.
do you not like bologna
Do you not like
sandwiches?
food?
You don't like baguettes? You don't like open-faced pot roast sandwich? You don't like a hot brown? You don't like a turkey sandwich? Like what? Because there's so many different types out there. It's the same way with beer. I don't like beer. Well, what kind of beer don't you like? Do you not like sour beer? Do you not like imperial stouts? Do you not like IPAs? Do you not like malty beers? Do you not like? And I'm just hitting the buzzword beers. There's 1,000 different styles out there. Mm-hmm. You just haven't found the beer that's right for you yet. And I guarantee, if you come in one of our great local breweries, especially Country Boy, we'll find one you like. We got 24 different ones on tap. Guarantee, if you come in, there's something that you'll like.
And there's one in bottles too. Are they in bottles at all?
We can most
You get
of
in
our
cans. See, there's in
Can you
cans.
put one in a can for me?
We can most of our. We have koozies too, so you'll be super comfortable.
Okay.
We can most of our beers are out there. We do some stuff in bottles, limited release stuff. Some of our sour beers, which is going to really blow your mind. Have you ever had a sour beer?
I love sour beers. It's funny too. Whenever you order,
Can you drink a lot of them, or are you just like?
I mean, you can.
there's
Just because you can
You
doesn't
need
mean
to
you
stop
should.
it.
It's always funny too because my wife and I drink very different beers. She's getting me to like IPAs a little bit more, but I'm not as big on them. So we'll order, and they'll usually set whatever she ordered in front of me and whatever I ordered in front of her. And I'll just switch. Be like, nope, I'm drinking the sour, and she's drinking the IPA.
Demographically speaking, this is definitely true in Japan, and we're starting to see it here a little bit more. But women aged 21 to 35 are much more adventurous than guys are. Right, and especially in the Kentucky market, like I was going back to that parochial thing, you can see it. Like a guy comes in, maybe he's straight from the job site, maybe he's straight from the hospital, he's a doctor, maybe he's straight out of the court, whatever. Just a random dude walks in. What kind of beer do you want? What's the lightest thing you got? What's the lightest color thing you got? Oh, here we got a Cougar Bait, or here we got a Syrah, or whatever. But we'll have a group of young ladies come in, and they're like, I want a sour beer, I want something dark, I want something fruity, I want something like this hoppy beer, this tastes fruity. Well, that's because it's from hops, not really from fruit.
Yeah.
Usually young ladies these days are much more adventurous in their both what they want to try and what they're willing to try.
Miranda, you could go try cider. Have you had ciders?
I was going to say the worst experience I've ever had was with a cider, and I don't usually come in and drink two.
Now you two do share. You like going out on the lake. Miranda's a big.
Oh yeah.
Big lake person.
See, that's why you need the cans.
Gotta be safe, right?
Yeah, cider. But I probably had too much of it. Way too much. I
Well,
was very, very ill.
depending on the ciders too, a lot of cider, like the way we make ciders, Daniel Sinkhorn and Trevor Austin, two of our guys, kind of take cider under their wing, and
It's
Sink
delicious.
has a wine
Yeah.
background. So his take on cider is we want to make fermented down all fruit. There's no additives or anything like that into it. That's not real fruit or things of that nature. But we want to make them kind of dry, and we're not back sweetening them. So like if you can make them taste really, really sugary and really, really sweet. Once they're done fermenting out, you can back sweeten them with sugar or some type of thing like that. And I think if you drink a lot of those, that's what makes you get the bubble guts and you feel terrible.
Oh, man.
But if you drink, that's the difference too. Was the cider you were drinking, was it locally made or was it mass produced?
It was, I don't know, it was over at that place that's closed now, on the corner of Nicholasville Road and Man o' War. It was kind of one of the first beer places. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Nicholasville and Man o' War.
Yeah, it was like
Which corner? Was
where
it
the
part of the
movie
summit,
theater.
or was it part of the?
No, other side of the street. Before you get there. Oh my gosh, what was it called? It's next to the movie theater, or it was in front of it.
The pub?
Yeah.
Yeah, that place is a little overpriced.
Yeah,
the
that's where I
pub by
had
the
this.
mall. You should have been by the mall.
That's how long it's been, and I still remember it.
The solid black building.
Yes.
that stood
I didn't
out.
even have any children then, and I still remember it.
They were kind of ahead of the curve a little bit with the different beers and weird stuff like that. So you probably had, if it's a pub, you probably had an English style cider, like a Strongbow, like a Magners, something like that. That's going to be a little sweeter than kind of what they were making around here.
I think we bought a boat that night too.
You know,
Like it was that kind of night.
You
It was
know,
that kind of night.
Many a good decision has started with a couple pints of beer.
You're right about that.
And then a few bad decisions have been made after, mostly good ones.
All right. Well, we are approaching the end of the conversation. DH, people want to get up with you on social media. What's the best way to do that?
Man, I'm a Twitter guy.
All right.
I'm learning Instagram, but you know that technology's passed me by, as we were talking about earlier. But I'm on Twitter at Country Boy DH. We're all over every social media platform.
You all got some big events coming up at the brewery.
Tomorrow is going to be we're hosting the fine folks from Kentucky Sports Radio are coming to do a remote at the Georgetown Tap Room tomorrow morning. It's going to be crazy. We hope to set the record for the most people ever at a remote. It's going to be nuts. Next weekend is our Oktoberfest, so we're going to be celebrating the Oktoberfest beer that's in cans this year. Also, we've got this crazy, awesome German accordion player that does some he'll do Blue Monday and like Bloodhound Gang and all this kind of stuff on accordion. It's a ton of fun. So if you're looking to have a few laughs and a few good beers too, that's Oktoberfest. It's going to be on the 21st.
Where's that?
That's in Georgetown.
In Georgetown, okay.
Yeah, and if you haven't come to the tap rooms, Lexington's still churning at 436 Chair Avenue. That tap room is small. It's about 900 square feet. It'll always be home. And in Georgetown, we're rocking and rolling. The tap room there's about 8,000 square feet. It's in the Lanes Run Business Park. And if you can't come there, man, just go to your local bar, your local retailer, and ask for Country Boy beer.
How many states are you all in now?
We're in 6 states right now. Indianapolis, south of Indiana. We're about to roll out Cincinnati. Hot take on that one. Breaking news. We're in Westchester, a little north of Cincinnati. All of West Virginia, all of Kentucky. That's wet. It's ridiculous I have to say that. And then in
Powell County just went wet recently.
Man, Powell County is rolling, man.
Yeah, place hasn't burned down yet, so I guess it wasn't too bad of a decision.
And a little bit Tennessee, Nashville, Knoxville, and then Virginia as well. Yeah, Powell County and the Gorge and all that area,
back
man.
home now, and
they are selling the fire out of beer down there.
I'll bet.
And
Where?
In Powell County.
Red River Gorge, where I'm from.
Oh, yes.
That's
And
one of the
if you're
things
down
growing
there,
up.
stop into Miguel's and tell the guys we said hey. And if
Go
you can't,
after you go on a hike in the Red River Gorge.
Right.
It's amazing, yeah.
Those guys at the Rock House, Skybridge Station, Miguel's. There's an awesome Mexican place that has a killer patio called the Cabana. But stop in and tell them we said, hey, they're selling a ton of good beer down there, and you can celebrate some beautiful things Kentucky has to offer.
Seems like Georgia would be ready for something like Country Boy.
So if you're a Georgia distributor, give us a call. Hit me up on Twitter at CountryBoyDH. We'll see. We have the capacity in Georgetown to grow. We're just trying to grow appropriately and be good stewards of the growth and see.
Not overextend yourselves.
Right. See where the ride takes us.
And I saw that you all are just now in a Top Golf. Is that right?
We just got into Top Golf in Westchester. It's right off the exit where IKEA is. Everyone knows where that is on the other side of Interstate. So you'll probably see us taking a few team building trips up to Top Golf.
Just check out their establishment.
Make sure the beer's tasting good and make sure they know what they're doing up there. It's a beautiful thing.
That's the other guy. I enjoy following your adventures because you definitely are kind of the lead spokesman for a lot of the stuff. And it's like, well, there's DH out on another adventure.
Well, in this world, you got to stick to what you're good at, and I just happen to be good at drinking beer and smiling. So I try to document that as much as possible.
Not a bad life.
Never work a day in your life,
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Well, Miranda, how do you think that went?
I think it went well. We learned a lot. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
This Miller Lite girl's stepping out.
We'll get you some cougar bait. That's
on a koozie.
In a koozie. There you go.
He said he has them.
There you go. Well, I was going to say that I've got several of their koozies. So yeah, that was it was an interesting talk, and it's just been neat to watch all of these different businesses open up in Lexington. Lexington's definitely become kind of a craft beer scene.
My some of my family's from Atlanta, and they look down on, we're going to Lexington. But now I'm like, do you want to go to the distillery district? Would that make you happy? Do you have one of these?
Now it's something you can hold over their head. There you go. That's nice. That's what's good that the city has provided something for you to hold
brag
over.
to my family
Hold
about.
over your family. Yeah. All right. Well, Miranda, do you have anything else going on? Any interesting stories we should be on the lookout for?
No, not right now. I can't
Okay.
talk about any of them.
That's fine. Well,
But-
that is part of. I was going to say some of the interesting stuff about your job is a lot of times you can't really talk about it until it's basically almost done, right?
Yeah, I know. It's tough, too.
All right.
But my husband gets to hear about it all night and watch me text and continue on all night. Anyway, but you said, what am I into right now?
Oh yeah, favorites. Yeah, we do a
We're gonna
favorite
spell
each
it.
week. Yes.
I'm going to spell it. SCHITT
Apostrophe.
S Creek. The best show I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, because
Have you seen it?
I think we started watching the first episode and got distracted and basically haven't. But I know a lot of people whose opinion I trust really enjoy it. So
Okay, yeah.
I think it's one of those things I will eventually watch. I love Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara.
Oh, she's fabulous in it. Fabulous. And we're only into like episode or season 2 because we can only watch them like one day a week, maybe 2 of them.
And the premise is they're a rich family who got
All their money taken away. They had a bad tax guy, and so the dad had bought a town as a joke for his son when they had all their money, and
Yeah.
that's all they had left, and it happened to be called SCHITT apostrophe S. I mean, it is hilarious.
when it's written out, you can tell that it's not a dirty word, but saying it on the podcast, I'm not sure.
I know, we crossed the line there, but it is fabulous. Everybody should check it out on Netflix.
All right. Well, that I will
What's
check that
yours?
out. Well, mine this week is a slice of cheesecake. Andrea and I, she told me I can't do food anymore, but she's not here right now. So we were in Georgetown the other day, and we stopped at Galvin's, which DH
Oh, yeah.
mentioned, and my wife's dad got a slice of cheesecake, and we all shared it, and it was delicious.
At Galvin's.
At Galvin's.
Okay.
It wasn't too sweet, which is what I really liked about it. You could tell it's made with like ricotta or some other sort of cheeses. Because a lot of times you get cheesecake, and I mean, I love it all. I eat it all. But it's just so sweet that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's very dessert-like. Whereas this one was a lot more neutral. And so you could really taste the cheese, and the crust was good. You don't look like you're...
That's
that
the best
doesn't-
part of your week?
The slice of cheesecake? Well, it's not the best part. It's just, you know, we recommend that we talk about something, one of our favorites. And
Wait,
that was...
I need to do better. I need
That
to
slice of
one-up you on this.
cheesecake was one of my favorites.
The pool closed. That's depressing.
That's not a favorite.
We're like, what do we do now on the weekend?
Oh no, we got to spend time with the kids.
Now we're going to soccer, baseball.
We did put the sprinkler out last week, and we had some friends come over, and you know the kids all ran around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized, man, kids sometimes they're just pretty easily entertained. You just let them off and let them run around, and
Yeah, it's great. And then you're thinking, oh gosh, the winter's coming, and they're going to be
Yeah.
stuck inside.
yeah, I haven't had to deal with that because obviously last winter, Vera was 6 months old, 7 months old, so we basically just had to bundle her up, and that was it. But now
much more fun.
she's running around, and we're gonna have to figure out what to do with her. So
I have some advice for
okay,
you.
I'm ready.
If Vera becomes a big sister sometime, do not let both of them go to the same doctor's appointment. There is something about a doctor's office that makes children go absolutely nuts. Like
Yeah.
between like a show, they're trying to show off, but it's not cool because the doctor's actually trying to get information. But it was like romper room in that. It was awful. I did it yesterday, and I'll never do it again.
Your
That
boys,
Where's Waldo picture doesn't hold them for an entire hour.
your boys always appear kind of theatrical anyway. That was just like posed and ready,
they
and
think
just
they're pretty awesome. Yeah.
oh, they are pretty awesome. But it always just cracks me up because they take such good pictures. I'm like, man, I wish I took that good of pictures. They're just always ready.
Oh, I just threatened them.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah, that helps.
I think you told us that. Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
no, you're living under our roof.
You're gonna smile at me.
Well, Miranda, I appreciate you joining us today. I've had fun.
Me too. Thanks.
Yeah,
This was
see?
a surprise.
Nice little break. There you
Yeah.
go. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening. Reach out to Miranda on Facebook or
Twitter. I'm trying to build my Twitter numbers.
All right. Well, we'll get you some likes. Maybe we'll buy some with robots or something. Bye, everybody.
Bye.